I watched my sister slip her feet into my custom Louboutins, the ones I'd spent 3 months of tutoring money on, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. These are perfect, Jessica cooed, twirling in front of her full-length mirror. The red soles flashed like warning signs. I knew they'd match my dress better than yours. Mom stood in the doorway, arms crossed, nodding approval. You're right, sweetheart. The silver complements your gown beautifully. Besides, your sister won't need them where she's going. Where I was going? They thought they were sending me to prom in a deliberately ruined dress, wearing flats, humiliated in front of the entire senior class. They thought tonight would break me completely, the final nail in the coffin of my spirit after 18 years of systematic torture. They had no idea I'd already lived this night once before. 3 months ago, in my previous life, I'd died. Not peacefully in my sleep, but violently, horribly, at the bottom of a staircase in this very house. Jessica had pushed me. I remembered her hands on my back, the moment of weightlessness, then nothing but pain and darkness. I remembered bleeding out on the marble floor while Mom stepped over my body to answer the phone. I remembered Dad arriving home from his business trip 3 days later, annoyed that the funeral arrangements interrupted his schedule. But somehow, inexplicably, I'd woken up 6 months in the past the day after my 18th birthday with every memory intact. 6 months to plan, 6 months to prepare, 6 months to become someone new while pretending to still be their victim. The shoes look better on me anyway, Jessica said, examining herself from every angle. You're too tall. They make you look like a giraffe. I was 5'10". She was 5'4". In my past life, her comment had devastated me. Tonight, I smiled. You're absolutely right, I said sweetly. They're all yours. Jessica's eyes narrowed with suspicion. In the old timeline, I would have cried, begged, maybe even tried to wrestle the shoes away from her. My compliance confused her. Good, she finally said, because I wasn't asking permission. Of course she wasn't. Jessica never asked for anything. She took. She'd taken my birthday presents, my college fund, my first boyfriend, my acceptance letter to Juilliard. She'd taken my dignity, my confidence, my will to live. In my previous life, she'd taken everything until there was nothing left but a broken girl at the bottom of the stairs. But this wasn't my previous life. Are you ready? Mom asked Jessica, completely ignoring my presence. The limo will be here in 20 minutes. Almost, Jessica said. I just need to fix my hair. Mom finally glanced at me. You're still here? I thought you'd have left by now. I'm going, I said. Just wanted to wish Jessica a wonderful evening. How gracious, Mom sneered. Maybe if you showed this kind of maturity more often, we wouldn't have to punish you so frequently. Punish, that's what she called it. The locked bedroom doors, the missed meals, the verbal abuse, the systematic destruction of everything I loved. Punishment for the crime of existing, for being born first, for having the audacity to be my father's daughter from his first marriage. Dad had remarried 6 months after my mother's death from cancer. I was 4 years old, Jessica was born a year later, and from that moment, I became the unwanted reminder of the woman my father had truly loved. Mom, Catherine, had spent 14 years making me pay for not being her biological daughter, and Dad, weak and conflict-averse, had let her. In my previous life, the abuse had escalated slowly, almost imperceptibly. A criticism here, a lost permission slip there. By high school, it was overt, stolen belongings, sabotaged applications, orchestrated humiliations. The prom was supposed to be the culmination, the final destruction of any hope I had for a future. Catherine had arranged everything perfectly. She'd taken my prom dress, a stunning emerald silk gown I'd sewn myself over 6 months, and accidentally spilled bleach on it that morning. She'd stolen my shoes for Jessica. She'd told my date, Marcus Chen, that I had mono and couldn't go, then suggested he take Jessica instead. She'd even called the prom committee and told them I'd dropped out of the running for prom queen due to family issues. In my previous life, I'd shown up anyway, wearing a hastily assembled backup dress that looked exactly as desperate as it was. I'd worn cheap flats. I'd watched Marcus slow dance with Jessica. I'd endured the pitying looks and whispered gossip. I'd won prom queen anyway. My classmates had voted weeks before, and the committee couldn't change the results. But the crown felt hollow. Jessica had thrown a screaming fit. And 3 days later, when I tried to leave for college early, Jessica had pushed me down the stairs. This time would be different. This time, I had a plan. The abuse hadn't always been so obvious. When Catherine first married my father, she'd been sweet to me, almost maternal. I'd been desperate for a mother figure, and she'd known exactly how to exploit that need. She'd braided my hair, baked cookies with me, tucked me in at night. I'd loved her. The change came when Jessica was born. Suddenly, every gesture of affection vanished. Catherine stopped looking at me except to criticize. My father, overjoyed with his new baby daughter, barely noticed. He worked constantly, building his tech company, leaving me alone with Catherine and the infant Jessica. By the time I was 6, I was raising myself. By 8, I was essentially a servant in my own home. By 12, I understood that I would never be good enough, pretty enough, worthy enough to deserve love from the people who were supposed to give it unconditionally. But I survived. I threw myself into school, into dance, into anything that took me away from home. I became exceptional out of spite, then out of genuine passion. I tutored to make money they couldn't take. I hid my achievements so they couldn't be sabotaged. I learned to be invisible. In my first life, invisibility had been survival. In this one, it was strategy. The rebirth itself remained a mystery. I died, definitely died. I remembered the cold creeping through my limbs, the fading light, the distant sound of Jessica's laughter as she called Dad to tell him I'd fallen. Then nothing. Then everything all at once. Waking up in my bedroom 6 months earlier, 18 years old again, the morning after my birthday. At first, I'd thought it was a nightmare, but the memories were too vivid, too consistent. I knew things I couldn't possibly know. Lottery numbers, stock prices, the exact date Miss Henderson's cat would go missing, the surprise quiz in AP chemistry. I tested the knowledge carefully. Everything was exactly as I remembered. I'd been given an impossible gift. Foreknowledge, a chance to rewrite history. The question was how to use it. Revenge seemed obvious. I could expose them, destroy them, make them suffer as they'd made me suffer. But I was 18, legally still a minor until the courts said otherwise, financially dependent, living in their house. Direct confrontation would fail. I needed to be smart. So I started planning. First, I documented everything. I set up hidden cameras in common areas of the house. I recorded conversations. I kept detailed journals of every incident, every theft, every cruel word. In my previous life, I'd had no proof. This time, I'd have mountains of it. Second, I reached out to people I'd lost touch with in my previous timeline. My maternal grandmother, Elaine Sutton, had tried to stay in my life after Mom died, but Catherine had systematically blocked her. Phone calls went unanswered. Letters were lost. Eventually, Grandma Elaine had assumed I didn't want a relationship. In my previous life, I'd reconnected with her after moving out, only to learn she'd died 2 weeks earlier. The regret had been crushing. This time, I called her the day after my rebirth. I cried. I explained, carefully, believably, that Catherine had been intercepting our communication. Grandma Elaine, sharp as ever at 72, believed me instantly. She'd never trusted Catherine. "I'm coming to get you," she'd said immediately. "Not yet," I'd replied. "I need to do this right, legally, but I need your help." Grandma Elaine had resources. My mother had come from old money, and while Dad had insisted I didn't need handouts, Grandma had established a trust fund for me that would mature when I turned 18. Catherine didn't know about it. In my previous life, I'd learned about it too late, after Grandma died and the lawyers finally tracked me down. This time, I knew. And I'd been preparing. Third, I applied to colleges again, but differently. In my previous life, I'd only applied to Juilliard, my dream school. Catherine had intercepted the acceptance letter and rejection letter both, showing me only the rejection. She'd forged my signature declining admission. I'd been devastated, convinced I wasn't good enough. This time, I applied to 15 schools. I had them send correspondence to Grandma Elaine's address. I got into 12, including Juilliard, with full scholarships to 7. I accepted Juilliard's offer and arranged for deferred admission. I'd start in the fall, after I turned 18 and could legally leave. Fourth, I prepared for prom. Because in my previous life, despite everything that had gone wrong that night, I'd realized that something important. My classmates didn't hate me. They'd voted for me as prom queen. They'd witnessed Jessica's tantrum. They'd seen through Catherine's lies about my family issues. The prom had been humiliating, but it had also revealed that I had more support than I'd realized. This time, I would use that. I sewed another dress even more beautiful than the first, but I kept it at Grandma Elaine's house. I let Catherine find and destroy the backup dress I'd planted in my closet. I let her think she'd won. As for the shoes, those beautiful, expensive Louboutins, I'd bought them knowing Jessica would take them. In my previous life, I'd worn them and they'd given me blisters within an hour. I'd spent half the night in pain, unable to dance, limping through what should have been a magical evening. Jessica had wider feet than me. Those shoes would be agony for her, but that was just a bonus. The real reason I'd bought them, spent 3 months of tutoring money on them, made such a show of how much I loved them. So Jessica would take them, so she'd wear them, so she'd be committed to them when the real plan unfolded. The limo arrived exactly on time. Jessica descended the stairs like a princess, her pink gown cascading behind her, my shoes glittering on her feet. Marcus waited at the bottom, looking uncomfortable in his rented tux. He'd agreed to take Jessica after Catherine's call, but I could see the confusion in his eyes. We'd been friends since sophomore year. He knew something was wrong. "Have fun, you two," Catherine cooed, snapping pictures. "My beautiful daughter and her handsome date." Dad stood beside her, barely looking up from his phone. "Be home by midnight," he said absently. Jessica preened. Marcus shifted awkwardly. Neither of them noticed me watching from the top of the stairs in jeans and a t-shirt, my makeup-free face a mask of defeat. Perfect. They left. Catherine and Dad retreated to their separate corners of the house, her to her bedroom, him to his office. Neither checked on me. Neither cared that their daughter had just been cruelly excluded from one of the most important nights of her senior year. I waited 30 minutes. Then I grabbed my pre-packed bag and slipped out the back door. Grandma Elaine was waiting 3 blocks away in her Mercedes. She took one look at me and pulled me into a fierce hug. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "Absolutely," I said. "Then let's make you the most beautiful girl at that prom." We drove to her house, a stunning Victorian mansion that Catherine had always been jealous of, and I transformed. The dress I'd made was emerald silk, but not the same design Catherine had destroyed. This one was better, a sleek, modern silhouette that hugged my curves before flowing into a subtle train. The neckline was elegant, the back dramatic. I'd designed it specifically for my body, my height, my coloring, and I would wear it barefoot. The idea had come to me 2 months ago. Jessica had stolen my shoes. Marcus had agreed to take her. Catherine had sabotaged my dress. In my previous life, I'd scrambled to salvage the situation, to compete on their terms. This time, I would refuse to play their game entirely. Going barefoot would be a statement. Unconventional. Confident. The kind of choice that could either humiliate me or make me unforgettable. I was betting on unforgettable. Grandma's stylist, Vera, did my makeup, dramatic but elegant, emphasizing my green eyes and strong features. My hair, long, dark, naturally wavy, was left mostly down with just a few artful pins to keep it off my face. No elaborate updo, no trying to be someone I wasn't. Jewelry was simple. My mother's diamond earrings, which Grandma had kept safe for me. Catherine had lost them years ago, but Grandma had actually taken them for safekeeping before Catherine could pawn them. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Not because I looked different, but because I looked like me. Confident, beautiful, free. "You're stunning," Grandma Elaine said, tears in her eyes. "Your mother would be so proud." "Thank you," I whispered. "For everything." "Go show them who you really are," she said. "And remember, tomorrow we file the paperwork." Tomorrow, we would begin the legal process of emancipation. With Grandma's lawyers, my documented evidence of abuse, and my trust fund, it would be straightforward. By graduation, I would be legally free of Catherine and Dad. But tonight was about more than legal freedom. Tonight was about reclaiming my power. I arrived at prom fashionably late, exactly 90 minutes after it started. The venue was the Grand Marquis Hotel Ballroom, decorated in silver and blue, fairy lights strung across the ceiling. Music pulsed through the space. My classmates danced, laughed, posed for pictures, and I walked in barefoot. The reaction was immediate. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. I heard gasps, whispers, then a growing wave of recognition and awe. Because here's what I knew from my previous life. The prom theme was Enchanted Evening, and the decorations included a silver blue carpet that ran from the entrance through the ballroom. In my previous life, I'd barely noticed it, too focused on my humiliation. But walking barefoot on that carpet, my emerald dress flowing behind me, I looked exactly like a fairy tale princess who'd lost her shoes but gained her kingdom. The symbolism was perfect. "Oh my God," I heard someone say, "that's Arya Sutton. Is she not wearing shoes? She looks incredible. Where did she get that dress?" I walked through the ballroom with my head high, ignoring the stairs, searching for my targets. I found Jessica first, standing near the refreshment table with Marcus. My shoes were already hurting her. I could see her shifting weight constantly, her face tight with pain. Her dress was beautiful, but next to mine, it looked ordinary, predictable. She saw me and her face went white, then red with rage. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, hobbling toward me. "Mom said you weren't coming." Mom was wrong. I said calmly, "Asai, you can't be here, not dressed like." She gestured frantically at my dress, unable to articulate her fury. "Like the best version of myself?" I offered. "I can and I am." "Where did you get that dress? And where are your shoes? You look ridiculous. Everyone's staring." "Yes," I agreed, "they are." But they weren't staring because I looked ridiculous. They were staring because I looked stunning. The barefoot choice, which could have been disastrous, had become iconic. I was the girl confident enough to attend prom without shoes and somehow make it work. I was interesting, memorable, free. Jessica, in her conventional pink princess gown and stolen designer heels, looked exactly like what she was. A girl playing dress up, uncomfortable in her borrowed finery, desperate to be someone she wasn't. Marcus approached cautiously. "Arya, I'm so sorry. Your mom called and said you were sick. I didn't know." "It's fine," I said, and meant it. In my previous life, I'd been angry at Marcus for abandoning me. This time, I understood he'd been manipulated. "I know it wasn't your fault." "That dress is amazing," he said. "Did you make it?" "I did." "You're incredibly talented." He glanced at Jessica, who was practically vibrating with rage. "Would you want to dance? Later, I mean. If that's okay." Jessica grabbed his arm. "You're my date." "I know," Marcus said, but he was still looking at me. "But I think I was supposed to be hers." The music shifted to a slower song. Couples moved onto the dance floor. Jessica tried to pull Marcus with her, but he gently extracted his arm. "My feet hurt," Jessica whined. "These shoes are killing me." "Maybe you should have worn your own," I said sweetly. Her eyes flashed with hatred. For a moment, I thought she might actually attack me right there in front of everyone. But then, Principal Hawthorne's voice came over the sound system. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to announce this year's prom court." The moment I'd been waiting for. In my previous life, this had been bittersweet. I'd won, but I'd been so miserable that the victory felt hollow. Catherine had conditioned me to believe I didn't deserve good things, that any success was a fluke, that I should be grateful for scraps. This time, I knew the truth. I'd earned this. My classmates had voted for me because I'd tutored half of them through calculus, because I'd choreographed the junior class musical, because I'd organized the charity drive that raised $20,000 for the Children's Hospital. I'd won because I deserved to win. "Your prom king is Marcus Chen." Applause erupted. Marcus looked surprised and pleased. He made his way to the stage, glancing back at me with an apologetic smile. Jessica's face contorted with jealousy. Her date was prom king, but she wasn't queen. "And your prom queen is—" I saw Jessica tense, saw her prepare for a victory she'd done nothing to earn but expected to receive anyway, because that's how our household worked. The worthy were punished and the wicked were rewarded. "Arya Sutton!" The ballroom exploded in cheers. My classmates, people I'd helped, befriended, quietly supported for years, showed their appreciation the only way they could. They'd voted for me in overwhelming numbers. Jessica had received exactly 7 votes, probably from her mean girl clique. I walked to the stage barefoot, my dress flowing behind me, and accepted the crown. Principal Hawthorne placed it on my head with a genuine smile. Well deserved, Arya. We're proud of you. I looked out at my classmates and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Belonging. These people saw me. They valued me. And for the first time in my life, I was in a space where merit mattered more than cruelty. Marcus joined me on stage and we posed for the traditional photo. Then we were supposed to dance the prom king and queen dance. May I? Marcus asked, offering his hand. You may, I said. We moved to the center of the floor. The opening notes of an old ballad began. Marcus was a good dancer. We'd taken swing dance lessons together junior year, and he led me effortlessly through the steps. My bare feet glided across the polished floor. I felt weightless, powerful, exactly where I was supposed to be. I'm sorry, Marcus said quietly, for believing your mom, for taking Jessica. I should have called you directly. You didn't know, I said. But thank you. Can I ask you something? He hesitated. What happened between you and your family? Everyone can tell something's wrong, but you never talk about it. You'd be surprised what people don't see when they don't want to, I said. But that's changing. Good, Marcus said firmly, Balsanis, because you deserve better. You've always deserved better. The song ended. Applause surrounded us. I curtsied playfully and Marcus bowed. We returned to the side of the dance floor where Jessica was waiting, her face a mask of barely contained fury. Congratulations, she spat. Enjoy your moment. It won't last. Actually, I said, it will. Because this was only Act 1 of my modern plan. The public triumph, the visible success was important. It established that I had value, that I had support outside my family, but the real revenge was still to come. The rest of prom passed in a blur of dancing, photos, and genuine celebration. My classmates congratulated me. Teachers praised me. Even people I barely knew came up to compliment my dress and ask about my bold fashion choice of going barefoot. It's a statement, I told them. Sometimes you have to walk your own path, even if it's unconventional. The statement became a meme within the hour. #BarefootQueen started trending on social media. Photos of me in my emerald dress, crowned and confident, flooded Instagram and TikTok. I'd become exactly what I'd hoped. Unforgettable. Jessica tried to salvage her night. She posted strategic photos that cropped me out, tried to claim she'd also won something, made increasingly desperate bids for attention. No one cared. She was yesterday's news. I was the story. By 11:30, Jessica's feet were bleeding inside my shoes. She'd been too proud to take them off, too stubborn to admit defeat. I watched her limp toward the bathroom, mascara running from pain-induced tears, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Marcus offered to drive me home, but I declined. Grandma Elaine was picking me up at midnight, the perfect Cinderella touch. I said my goodbyes, thanked Principal Hawthorne, and walked out of the Grand Marquis Hotel at 11:57 p.m., still barefoot, still crowned. Grandma was waiting at the curb. How was it? She asked. Perfect, I said. Absolutely perfect. Good. Because tomorrow, we go to war. In my previous life, I'd gone home after prom and found Catherine waiting to humiliate me further. She'd mocked my prom queen win, called it a pity vote, destroyed the crown. Dad had stood by and watched. Jessica had smirked from the stairs, the same stairs she'd pushed me down 3 days later. This time, I didn't go home. I slept in Grandma Elaine's guest room, which she insisted I start calling my room, and woke Sunday morning to a breakfast spread that would have fed 10 people. Grandma believed in comfort food as therapy, and after 18 years of Catherine's portion control, a euphemism for starving me, I'd learned to appreciate it. Big day, Grandma said, pouring coffee. Are you ready? I've been ready for 6 months, I said. We started with the lawyers. Grandma had retained Morrison and Associates, the best family law firm in the state. Her lead attorney, Patricia Morrison, was a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and a reputation for destroying abusers in court. "I've reviewed your documentation," Patricia said, spreading files across her conference table. Photos, videos, audio recordings, journal entries spanning 6 months. It's comprehensive and damning. "Is it enough?" I asked. "For emancipation? Absolutely. You're 18, you have independent means via your trust fund, and you've documented a pattern of abuse and neglect. The judge will grant it without hesitation." "What about criminal charges?" Patricia's expression hardened. "That's trickier. Emotional abuse is difficult to prosecute. The theft of your personal property, the intercepted mail, these are crimes, but typically misdemeanors with minimal consequences." "And the attempted murder?" I asked quietly. Patricia looked confused. "What attempted murder?" Right. In this timeline, Jessica hadn't pushed me down the stairs yet. She wouldn't, because I wouldn't give her the opportunity, but I knew her intent, knew she was capable of it. "Never mind," I said. "What about civil suits?" "Much more promising," Patricia said. "We can sue for the stolen college fund, the destroyed property, the emotional distress. Your father and stepmother are jointly liable. Given your father's wealth, we're looking at a potentially significant settlement." "I don't want a settlement," I said. "I want everything documented in public court records. I want their reputations destroyed." Patricia smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "I like you. Let's do that." We spent 3 hours going through strategy. Patricia would file for emergency emancipation Monday morning, citing the documented abuse and my need for immediate legal independence. She'd simultaneously file a civil suit for damages. The local press would be anonymously tipped off. High-profile tech CEO abuses daughter, film at 11. But that was just the legal approach. I had other plans. Monday morning, I went to school as usual. Catherine had been enraged when I didn't come home Sunday night. Grandma had informed her via text that I was staying with her and would return for my belongings later, but there was nothing she could do. I was 18. Legally, I could live wherever I wanted, but I still had to maintain the pretense of normalcy for a few more days. Jessica was waiting at my locker, her feet bandaged, her expression venomous. "You think you're so special," she hissed. "You think winning some stupid popularity contest makes you better than me?" "No," I said honestly. "I think years of being a decent human being makes me better than you." "You're nothing. A charity case Dad got stuck with when your mom died." "Is that what Catherine tells you?" I asked. "That I'm a burden? That I deserve everything you've done to me?" "You do deserve it. You're weak, pathetic. You just take whatever we dish out." "Not anymore," I said. I opened my locker. Inside, I'd placed a carefully curated display, printed copies of all my college acceptance letters, including Juilliard, photos from prom, my scholarship offers, a copy of my trust fund documentation. Everything that proved I had a future they couldn't destroy. Jessica stared. "What is this?" "My exit strategy," I said. "In case you were wondering where I'll be next year." "Dad will never let you go to Juilliard. He already told you no." "Dad told me no when he thought I hadn't gotten in. But I did. And now that I'm emancipated, he can't stop me." "Emancipated?" Jessica's voice rose. "You can't—" "I can, I am. The paperwork was filed this morning." The color drained from her face. "Mom will kill you." "Mom will try," I agreed. "But that's why I'm staying with Grandma Elaine until it's finalized." "You can't just leave. We're your family." I laughed. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of Jessica who'd stolen from me, sabotaged me, abused me for years, claiming family loyalty was too much. "You were never my family," I said. "You were my tormentors, and now you're my past." I closed the locker and walked away. Behind me, I heard Jessica screaming, drawing attention, making a scene. Perfect. The more witnesses to her instability, the better. By lunch, the entire school knew I was seeking emancipation. The rumor mill worked overtime. Some people assumed it was a misunderstanding. Others, who'd witnessed Jessica's cruelty firsthand, understood immediately. Marcus found me in the library. "Is it true?" he asked. "You're legally separating from your family?" "Yes." "Because of what happened with Prom?" "Because of what's been happening for 18 years, I corrected. Prom was just the catalyst." "I had no idea it was that bad," Marcus said quietly. "No one did. That was the point. They were very careful." "Is there anything I can do to help?" I considered. Marcus was genuinely kind, and his father was a prominent businessman with connections to Dad's social circle. That could be useful. "Actually, yes," I said. "I need you to tell me everything you know about Preston Enterprises' board of directors." Marcus looked confused. "My dad's on the board. Why?" "Because I'm going to destroy my father's company," I said calmly, "and I need to know who his enemies are." Preston Enterprises was my father's tech company, specializing in data security software. He'd built it from nothing, and it was now worth approximately $200 million. He was CEO and majority shareholder, but he wasn't the only shareholder. The board of directors included several investors who'd clashed with Dad over the years about company direction. In my previous life, I'd known nothing about the company. Dad kept his work life completely separate from home. But in my 6 months of planning, I'd done extensive research. I knew the board members, I knew the company's vulnerabilities, and I knew exactly how to exploit them. "Marcus, does your dad ever complain about my father?" I asked. "All the time," Marcus admitted. "He thinks your dad is too conservative, won't take risks, leaves money on the table." "What if I told you that my father has been embezzling company funds for years?" Marcus's eyes widened. "Is that true?" "Technically, no, but he has been using company resources for personal expenses. Company car for family vacations, company credit card for Catherine's shopping, sprees. It's not embezzlement exactly, but it's definitely ethics violations and possibly illegal misuse of shareholder resources." "How do you know?" "Because I've been documenting it for 6 months," I said. "And I'm willing to share that documentation with board members who might be interested in removing him as CEO. "Arya, that's corporate sabotage." "That's justice," I corrected. "He stole my college fund to buy Catherine a car. He used money that should have gone to employee bonuses on a vacation house in Aspen. He's been screwing over his employees and shareholders to fund his family's lifestyle. All I'm doing is exposing the truth." Marcus was silent for a long moment, then, "My dad would be very interested in seeing that documentation." "Good," I said, because I'm emailing it to him tomorrow." Tuesday afternoon, Patricia Morrison called with good news. "The emancipation hearing is scheduled for Thursday," she said. "Given your age, your financial independence, and the documented abuse, Judge Whitmore will almost certainly grant it. Your father's lawyers are scrambling to mount a defense, but they have nothing. You'll be legally free by the end of the week." "And the civil suit?" "Filed and served. Catherine is furious, by the way. She showed up at our office this morning demanding we drop the case. Security escorted her out." I smiled grimly. Catherine was used to intimidating people. Lawyers who specialized in protecting abuse victims were considerably harder to bully. "There's something else," Patricia continued. "We've been contacted by a reporter from the Metro Daily News. They're investigating allegations of abuse and corporate misconduct at Preston Enterprises. Did you happen to speak to the press?" "Not directly," I said, "but I may have sent an anonymous tip." "Arya, you need to be careful. If this becomes a media circus—" "That's exactly what I want," I interrupted. "Catherine and my father have spent years controlling the narrative, making me the problem child, the ungrateful daughter. It's time the truth came out. The truth can be weaponized against you, too." "Let them try," I said. I have nothing to hide. Can they say the same?" Patricia sighed. "You're either very brave or very reckless. I haven't decided which." "Why not both?" Wednesday, the article ran, Tech CEO's hidden scandal. Daughter seeks emancipation amid abuse allegations. It was front page news. The reporter, a woman named Sarah Chen, had done her homework. She'd interviewed my teachers who confirmed I was an exceptional student with no disciplinary record. She'd spoken to my classmates, who described me as kind and generous. She'd reviewed court documents which detailed the abuse allegations, and she'd obtained comment from anonymous sources, me, via untraceable channels, about the misuse of company funds. The article painted a devastating picture. Brilliant, successful CEO Douglas Preston had a dark secret. Behind closed doors, he enabled his wife's abuse of his eldest daughter. He stole her college fund. He turned a blind eye to theft, manipulation, and cruelty, and he used his company's resources to fund the lifestyle that kept his wife happy and his daughter miserable. By noon, the article had gone viral. Tech blogs picked it up. Twitter exploded. Arya Sutton was trending again, but this time it wasn't about prom. It was about survival. Dad's PR team went into damage control mode. They released a statement calling the allegations a family dispute being exploited by an ungrateful child. They claimed I was lying for attention and money. But then the documentation leaked. Photos of my destroyed belongings, audio recordings of Catherine's verbal abuse, video footage of Jessica stealing my shoes, bank records showing Dad had transferred my college fund to his personal account. The evidence was overwhelming, and it was everywhere. By Wednesday evening, 3 board members of Preston Enterprises had called for Dad's resignation. Marcus's father was leading the charge. The company's stock dropped 15%. Investors were panicking. And my father, for the first time in his life, was facing consequences. Catherine, meanwhile, had become a pariah. Her country club friends stopped returning her calls. Her social media accounts were flooded with comments calling her a child abuser. Someone found her wedding registry from years ago and sent her a bill for the emotional damages she'd inflicted. The internet can be merciless when it identifies a villain. Jessica tried to defend them. She posted a long Instagram rant about how I was lying, how I'd always been jealous of her, how I was tearing the family apart for attention. It backfired spectacularly. People pointed out that she'd stolen my shoes and my prom date. Someone dug up a video from junior year where she'd accidentally spilled juice on my science fair project. The evidence of her cruelty was there for anyone willing to look. By Thursday morning, all 3 of them were in hiding, and I was walking into court. The emancipation hearing was surprisingly brief. Patricia presented the evidence. Dad's lawyers made weak arguments about family reunification and teenager rebellion. Judge Whitmore listened to approximately 15 minutes of testimony before banging her gavel. "I've seen enough," she said. "Ms. Sutton, you've demonstrated that you have the maturity, financial means, and just cause to be granted emancipation. Given the documented history of abuse and neglect, I'm also issuing a restraining order against your father and stepmother. They are not to contact you, come within 500 feet of you, or interfere with your education or future plans. This order will remain in effect for a minimum of 2 years." She looked directly at Dad. "Mr. Preston, you should be ashamed of yourself. You had a responsibility to protect your daughter, and you failed catastrophically. You're fortunate she's only seeking emancipation and not pressing criminal charges." Dad's face was gray. Catherine, sitting beside him, looked like she'd been slapped. "As for the civil suit," Judge Whitmore continued, "I'll be watching that case closely. Ms. Sutton, good luck to you. I have no doubt you'll thrive now that you're free of these people." The gavel banged again. It was done. I was legally free. Grandma Elaine hugged me tightly. Patricia shook my hand. Marcus, who'd come to support me, grinned. "You did it," he said. "Not yet," I replied. "There's still one more thing." Friday afternoon, I went back to the house, my former home, to collect my belongings. The police accompanied me as per the restraining order. Catherine and Dad had to stay in their bedroom while I packed. Jessica, however, intercepted me in the hallway. "You destroyed us," she said. Her eyes were red from crying. "Mom's friends have abandoned her. Dad might lose his company. Everyone at school hates me. Are you happy now?" "I didn't destroy you," I said calmly. "I just stopped protecting you from the consequences of your own actions. We're family." "You've spent 18 years proving otherwise." I'm sorry, Jessica said suddenly. The words sounded foreign in her mouth. I'm sorry for everything. Please call off the lawyers. Tell the press you lied. We can fix this. No, I said, we can't. Because you're not actually sorry. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there are consequences. But you're not sorry for what you did to me. I am, I swear. On Jessica, in another timeline, you pushed me down the stairs. You killed me and you laughed about it. She stared at me confused. What are you talking about? Nothing you'd understand, I said. Just know that I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this so you never do to anyone else what you did to me. I walked past her into my room and began packing. My books, my clothes, my dance trophies that Catherine had hidden in the attic, everything that was mine. A police officer helped me carry boxes to Grandma's car. It took 3 trips. As we loaded the last box, I looked back at the house, the place where I'd been raised, tortured, and ultimately murdered in a timeline that no longer existed. I felt nothing. No sadness, no nostalgia, not even anger anymore. Just relief that this chapter was finally, truly over. The civil suit took 3 months to resolve. Dad's lawyers wanted to settle quickly to avoid further damage to his reputation, but Patricia dragged it out deliberately. We wanted maximum exposure, maximum accountability. In the end, I received the full amount of my original college fund plus interest. Compensation for destroyed property, approximately $50,000 worth of belongings Catherine had lost or ruined over the years. Payment for emotional distress, $200,000, and most importantly, a public apology read in open court and published in the same newspaper that had run the original story. Dad read the apology himself, his voice hollow. He admitted to neglect. He admitted to misuse of funds. He admitted he'd failed me as a father. Catherine refused to apologize. She sat in the courtroom, stone-faced, radiating hatred. Judge Whitmore held her in contempt and added another $50,000 to the settlement. The total came to just under $500,000. Combined with my trust fund, I had nearly $1 million at age 18. But more valuable than the money was the vindication. The public acknowledgement that I had been wronged, that I hadn't been crazy or overly sensitive, that I had survived something real and terrible, and I had won. Preston Enterprises' board of directors voted to remove Dad as CEO in July. The company's new leadership team immediately launched an internal investigation into financial irregularities. Dad was forced to return approximately $2 million in improperly used funds. He retained his shares but lost control of the company he'd built. It should have destroyed him. Instead, weirdly, it humbled him. 3 months after the emancipation, Dad reached out through lawyers to request a meeting. I agreed, curious. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown with Grandma Elaine present as my support. Dad looked older, grayer, defeated in a way I'd never seen. I don't expect forgiveness, he said immediately. I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know that I'm in therapy. I'm trying to understand how I let things get so bad. Do you understand? I asked. I'm beginning to, he said. Catherine was controlling. I was conflict-averse. I convinced myself that if I just kept everyone happy, everything would be fine. But I wasn't keeping you happy. I wasn't even keeping you safe. No, I agreed. You weren't. Your mother, your real mother, would be ashamed of me. Yes, I said. She would be. He flinched but didn't argue. I know I can't make up for 18 years, but I'd like to try, if you'll let me. I looked at him for a long moment. In my previous life, I'd died without ever having this conversation. I'd never known if he was capable of change, of growth, of actually seeing me as a person rather than a problem. I'll think about it, I said finally. But understand this. You're not my father anymore. Not in any way that matters. If we have a relationship going forward, it will be because I choose it. And it will be on my terms. I understand, he said. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive him, but I appreciated that he tried. Catherine, by contrast, never apologized. She and Jessica moved to California after the divorce. Dad finally filed when the extent of Catherine's abuse became public. I heard through Grandma's social network that Catherine was working as a real estate agent and Jessica was attending community college. They'd been knocked off their pedestal, forced into ordinary lives they'd always considered beneath them. It was exactly what they deserved. I started at Juilliard in September, 3 months after my high school graduation. My major was dance with a minor in choreography. I'd dreamed of this for years, and in my first life, that dream had been stolen. This time, I walked through those doors as a scholarship student, a published survivor, and a young woman who'd fought for her freedom and won. College was everything I'd hoped. I was surrounded by talented, passionate people. My professors challenged me. My peers inspired me. For the first time in my life, I was in an environment where hard work was rewarded and cruelty was rejected. I made friends easily. I dated casually. I discovered who I was when I wasn't constantly in survival mode. And I danced. God, I danced. Every class, every rehearsal, every performance was a celebration of the freedom I'd won. My body, which had been criticized and controlled for so long, became an instrument of expression. I channeled 18 years of pain into art, and it was transcendent. By my sophomore year, I was dancing lead roles in major productions. By junior year, I was choreographing original works. By senior year, I was being recruited by professional companies. The story of the Barefoot prom queen who'd emancipated herself from her abusive family had become legend. I was interviewed by dance magazines, invited to speak at conferences about surviving abuse, held up as an example of resilience. It was surreal. In my first life, I'd been invisible. In this one, I was impossible to ignore. 5 years after my rebirth, I was 23 and a professional dancer with the New York Metropolitan Ballet. I had my own apartment in Manhattan. I had friends, colleagues, a career I loved. I had everything I dreamed of and more. And then, one day, I saw Jessica. She was working at a Starbucks in Midtown. I'd stopped in for coffee before rehearsal, and there she was wearing a green apron, taking orders. She saw me and froze. I could have left, should have left. We had nothing to say to each other, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hi, Jessica," I said. "Aria." Her voice was flat. "What do you want?" "Just coffee? This is where you work?" "Obviously." "How are you?" She laughed bitterly. How am I? I'm broke. I'm working retail. I dropped out of community college because I couldn't afford it. Mom and I share a one-bedroom apartment in Queens. My life is a disaster. But you know that. You wanted this. I wanted freedom, I corrected. What you're experiencing is just the natural consequence of being a terrible person for 18 years. I was a kid. So was I, but I didn't torture people. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Do you know what it's like? Having everyone know what we did? I can't escape it. Every time someone Googles my name, the articles come up. Jessica Preston, daughter of disgraced CEO, enabler of child abuse. I'm branded. For life. Welcome to consequences, I said. I've been living with the results of your cruelty for my entire life. Forgive me if I don't feel too sympathetic. I was sorry, she said. I tried to apologize. No, you tried to avoid punishment. There's a difference. I paid for my coffee and turned to leave. Aria, Jessica called after me. Do you ever think about us? About what we could have been if things were different? I considered the question honestly. Sometimes. In another life, maybe we could have been real sisters. Maybe I could have loved you. But in this life, you made your choices. And now you get to live with them. I left her there, crying behind the counter, and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, not even residual anger. Just nothing. She was a stranger now, a footnote in my story, the villain I'd defeated, and I was the hero who'd survived. 10 years after my rebirth, I was 28 and at the peak of my career. I'd become a principal dancer at the New York Metropolitan Ballet. I'd choreographed pieces that had been performed internationally. I'd written a memoir about my experience that became a bestseller. I'd used my platform to advocate for abuse survivors and had established a scholarship fund for talented young artists escaping difficult home situations. I'd also reconnected with my father, cautiously, slowly, with firm boundaries. He'd genuinely changed, had done years of therapy, and had dedicated himself to making amends. We had lunch once a month. It wasn't a traditional father-daughter relationship, but it was something. He'd even walked me through the trust fund my mother had established, explaining her hopes for me, her dreams that I would be taken care of. She knew, Dad said during one of those lunches. Your mother knew she was dying, and she made me promise I'd protect you. I failed her. I failed you. Yes, I agreed, but you're trying now. That counts for something. Grandma Elaine, now 82, remained my closest family. She attended every performance, every premiere, every important moment. She'd become the mother I'd lost, the grandmother I'd needed, the family I'd chosen. And Marcus, steady, kind Marcus, had become my best friend and eventually, tentatively, something more. We'd stayed in touch through college, had supported each other through various relationships, and had finally admitted 3 years ago that maybe we'd been supposed to be together all along. He proposed on the anniversary of the Barefoot Prom, presenting me with a pair of custom-designed ballet slippers instead of a traditional ring box. You told me once that you had to walk your own path, he said. I'd like to walk it with you, if you'll have me. I said yes. We got married in a small ceremony with 50 guests, all people we'd chosen, all people who'd supported us. No drama, no cruelty, no stolen shoes or sabotaged dreams. Just love, freely given and joyfully received. 15 Years after my rebirth, I was 33 and teaching master classes at Juilliard. I'd retired from performing the year before. My body, after years of professional dance, needed rest, and had transitioned into choreography and instruction. My students were talented, hungry, and reminded me of myself at their age. One afternoon, a young woman approached me after class. She was 17, talented, and had a haunted look I recognized. Ms. Preston? She said quietly. Can I talk to you? Of course. What's your name? Emma. I read your memoir about your family and emancipation and everything you survived. What did you think? I think you saved my life. She took a deep breath. My parents are like yours were. Abusive, controlling. They want me to quit dance to study something practical. But dance is all I have. It's the only thing that makes me feel alive. How old are you? 17, almost 18. Do you have any other family? Anyone who might help you? An aunt, but I haven't seen her in years. My parents cut her off. Then here's what you're going to do, I said, pulling out my phone. You're going to call your aunt. You're going to document every instance of abuse. You're going to contact a lawyer. I'll give you my attorney's information. And on your 18th birthday, you're going to file for emancipation. But the money, there's a scholarship fund, the Arya Sutton Foundation. It's specifically for artists in situations like yours. You apply, you interview, and if you're selected, we cover your legal fees, your living expenses, and your tuition. All of it. Emma stared at me, eyes wide. Why would you do that? Because 15 years ago, someone helped me, I said, and now I'm passing it forward. Over the next 6 months, I helped Emma escape her situation. She was granted emancipation 2 weeks after her 18th birthday. She enrolled at Juilliard on a full scholarship, and 5 years later, she became one of the most promising young choreographers in the country. Her story was mine, but different, unique, her own. And that was the point. I couldn't save everyone, but I could save some. I could be the grandmother, the lawyer, the support system that other trapped kids needed. I could turn my survival into purpose. 20 years after my rebirth, I was 38 years old. I'd lived twice as long in this timeline as I had in my original life. I'd accomplished more than I'd ever dreamed possible. I had a career, a family, a legacy, and I'd long since stopped thinking about Jessica, Catherine, or the life they'd tried to destroy. But then I got a letter. It was from Jessica. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. "Dear Arya," it began, "I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to contact you, but I'm dying and I need to say some things before it's too late. I have stage 4 cancer, 6 months, maybe less, and I've spent the last 20 years thinking about what I did to you. Therapy, 12-step programs, all of it. I've tried to become a better person. I can't undo the past. I can't give you back your childhood, but I can tell you this, you were right about everything. I was cruel, I was entitled, I was a monster, and you deserved none of it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even want to see you, but I needed you to know that I understand now. I understand what we did to you, and I'm sorry, truly, deeply, impossibly sorry. You won. You survived. You thrived. You became everything we tried to prevent you from becoming. And I'm glad because you deserved to win. Live well, Arya. You earned it. Jessica, I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it away in a drawer and never thought about it again. Because here's the thing about closure. Sometimes it comes from the person who hurt you admitting their guilt. But more often it comes from realizing you don't need their apology to move forward. Jessica's contrition was 20 years too late. And while I appreciated the acknowledgement, it changed nothing. I'd already won. 25 years after my rebirth, I was 43 years old. Grandma Elaine had passed away peacefully at 97, leaving me her Victorian mansion and the foundation she'd helped me build. My father had died 2 years later, a heart attack, sudden and unexpected. We'd made our peace before the end. Marcus and I had 2 children, Elaine, named after my grandmother, and Thomas, named after Marcus's father. They were 10 and 8, talented and kind and blissfully unaware of how dark the world could be. I'd made sure of that. I'd given them the childhood I'd never had, stable, loving, safe. They had 2 parents who adored them, a home full of laughter, and the freedom to be exactly who they were. "Mom," Elaine asked me one day, "why don't we see Grandma Catherine?" "Because she's not safe," I said honestly. I'd always vowed to tell my children the truth, age appropriately. Sometimes people hurt the ones they're supposed to love, and when that happens, it's okay to walk away. "Did she hurt you?" "Yes." "That's why you help other kids," Thomas said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I agreed. "That's why." They nodded, satisfied, and went back to their homework. They were growing up in a world where abuse wasn't tolerated, where survivors were believed, where victims could become victors. I'd helped build that world. Me and thousands of others like me, speaking out, refusing to be silent, turning our pain into purpose. The Barefoot prom queen had become a warrior, and her kingdom was justice. 30 years after my rebirth, I was 48 years old. I'd published my second memoir, this one about healing and building a life after trauma. I'd expanded the foundation to serve hundreds of young artists annually. I'd trained a generation of dancers who now danced in companies around the world. I'd lived a good life, a full life, the life I'd been denied in my first timeline. And sometimes, late at night, I thought about the mystery of my rebirth. Why had I been given a second chance? Was it random? Divine intervention? A glitch in the universe? I didn't know. I'd probably never know. But I'd learned not to question the gift. I'd learned to be grateful for every day, every moment, every opportunity to choose differently. I'd learned that revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about refusing to let them destroy you. And I'd learned that the best way to defeat the people who tried to break you is to live well, love deeply, and become exactly who you were always meant to be. The crown from that long-ago prom sat in a glass case in my office at the foundation. It was cheap plastic and fake jewels worth nothing monetarily. But it represented everything I'd fought for: recognition, validation, the public acknowledgement that I had value. Sometimes young women who came to the foundation for help would ask about it. "Is that from when you were prom queen?" they'd ask. "Yes," I'd say. "Did you really go barefoot?" "Yes." "Why?" And I'd tell them the truth. Because someone took my shoes. And I could have let that stop me. Or I could have walked my own path anyway. I chose to walk. And you still won? I still won. Because winning isn't about having the most expensive shoes or the perfect dress or the right date. It's about refusing to be defined by what others take from you. It's about knowing your worth, even when everyone around you denies it. How did you know? I didn't, not at first, but I learned, and so will you. That was my legacy, really. Not the awards or the performances or the books, but the countless young women who learned from my story that they could survive, that they could fight back, that they could win. I'd been given a second chance at life, and I'd used it to give others their first real chance. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. On the 30-year anniversary of that prom, 30 years after I'd walked barefoot into a ballroom and reclaimed my power, the foundation threw a gala. Hundreds of former scholarship recipients attended, along with donors, supporters, and friends. Marcus gave a speech about resilience. Elaine, now a lawyer specializing in family law, talked about breaking cycles of abuse. Thomas, a social worker, discussed the importance of support systems. And I stood at the podium looking out at a room full of people who'd overcome impossible odds, who'd survived what should have broken them, who'd thrived despite everything, and I said, 30 years ago, my sister stole my shoes. She thought she was taking something precious from me. She thought she was winning. But what she actually did was teach me that I didn't need shoes to walk tall. I didn't need anyone's permission to be magnificent. I just needed to choose myself. Everyone in this room has had something stolen from them. Childhoods, opportunities, safety, love. And everyone in this room has made the choice to keep walking anyway. That's not just survival, that's victory. So tonight we celebrate, not because the journey was easy, but because we took it. Not because we had every advantage, but because we refused to let disadvantage define us. We celebrate because we're still here. We're still fighting. We're still winning. And to everyone who tried to break us, thank you. Thank you for underestimating us. Thank you for believing we'd stay down. Because your belief in our weakness became the foundation of our strength. Your cruelty became our purpose. Your attempts to destroy us became the story of our resurrection. You tried to bury us. You didn't know we were seeds. To everyone in this room, you are not your trauma. You are not what was done to you. You are what you chose to become despite it all. You are survivors, warriors, phoenixes rising from ashes. You are magnificent, and you are wearing exactly the right shoes for your journey, even if that means no shoes at all. The room erupted in applause. People stood, cheered, cried. Marcus pulled me into a hug. My children beamed with pride. And somewhere, in a timeline that no longer existed, a broken 18-year-old girl lay dying at the bottom of a staircase, wondering if anyone would miss her. I'd spent 30 years answering that question. Yes, she was missed. She was mourned. She was avenged. But more than that, she was transcended. She became something her killers never imagined, free, powerful, victorious, and profoundly, undeniably alive. The Barefoot Queen had walked her own path, and she'd built a kingdom along the way.